guys, welcome to the Mainspringer channel. I'm Parikh, and in today's video we're going to talk about a watch. It's a vintage watch, and it's really the type of watch that is something unique from the Tudor stable. I call it the Rolex that never got to be, and the reason for this is because typically when Tudor introduces a watch, there is a equivalent watch in the Rolex portfolio either at the same time or later in date. For example, Tudor launched the Oyster Prince, and a few years later there was the Oyster Perpetual. In the similar manner, Tudor had automatic chronographs, and later Rolex also followed up with the automatic chronograph. And this watch over here is the Tudor Advisor. It is a alarm watch from Tudor. It never really got a Rolex equivalent, so I really call it the Rolex that never meant to be. This is a Tudor Advisor, reference 7926. It has a Adolphe Schilt movement, a 1475 movement. It's fitted with a Oyster case and has these riveted bracelets. These aren't the faux riveted bracelets. These are actual riveted bracelets with a deploy and clasp that has the Rolex logo on it, and it's got the stamping of the Rolex on the inside, just like older bracelets. This is the very first alarm watch from Tudor. This watch actually debuted in the year 1957. You can actually say this is from 1957 because if you look at the bracelet is stamped 57. So this is the first Tudor Advisor with the crosshair pattern. Future references did not really have the crosshair pattern. This was the very first one. It's a vintage watch. It's from 1957. This was not the first alarm watch in the market. Really, the first alarm watch was the Vulcan Cricket, which came almost 10 years ago in 1947. There was also another popular model, which was the JLC Memovox that came out in 1949. Both watches that I'm going to show you today, these are both manual wind watches. This is a vintage watch. So I actually purchased this on eBay 7 years ago in pretty great condition. You can see the beautiful Tudor rose logo, and you see these really nice diamond-shaped index at 12, 3, 6, and 9, and it's got this gold second hand, and really what stands out is this really beautiful rich lacquered red alarm hand. And the way this watch works is there are two crowns. You can see there's a top crown and the bottom crown. The bottom crown is the standard crown that you would use to set the time. You pull it out, you adjust the time, you wind it, and that controls the regular timekeeping. The top crown is to set the alarm hand and activate the alarm. You can turn it and set the alarm hand, and you pull it out, and that means the alarm is active. And then whenever the alarm rings, you just press it in and the alarm shuts down. I will show you the operation in just a second. But one thing I want to tell people is in today's day and age, everybody is running for the latest and greatest watches, and you can find such beautiful, unique pieces from the historic catalog of some of these watch brands that are in really great condition, first of all, and there were very few of these pieces made. So you are really having something rare. Now, the biggest gripe that people have is quality of the movement and servicing cost associated with the vintage watches. But keep in mind, new watches also require servicing, and granted, the interval for those may be a lot longer than vintage watches. But I purchased this watch off eBay. I do not know anything about the service history, and this watch is almost 70 years old and it works just fine. So yes, could it do with the servicing? Probably, but no servicing as far as I know in 70 years. That's pretty impressive for a vintage watch. So don't diss vintage watches without having done your research. That's one thing I would say. And secondly, do your research. So I didn't just land up picking up this watch. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew this was the very first Tudor Advisor, and that's exactly what I wanted. I had one Tudor Advisor before this, which was not the very first one, but the minute I saw this, I knew exactly what this piece was. I knew its history, I knew its heritage, and I wanted this watch immediately, and I got it on eBay, which is amazing. amazing find. So this again is a very, very beautiful watch. This one has a standard oyster case, and here you can see the case back is actually a separate plate. It's not an integrated case back, it's actually a separate plate, and you can see this welded notch over here. That is the piece of metal onto which a hammer strikes to sound the alarm. And again, this is not a chiming type alarm, so let's put this watch in action. So I'm gonna take this crown out, and well, the time is set, so let's just give it a wind and let's get that second hands moving. All right, we got that. Now the alarm is set for a little after 7. Again, remember this watch is a vintage watch, never had any servicing. Let's wind the alarm spring, okay? And now I'm gonna pull it out to set the alarm. Okay, there, it's pulled out, the alarm is active. So now let's move the hands closer to the alarm time and let's see what happens there. So that was it. That was the alarm going off. So it's a very tiny alarm. It actually sounds very much like a cricket chirping, which is why the Vulcan was called the cricket. But there you see this watch in action. But that's basically the Tudor Advisor. Again, beautiful, beautiful vintage piece. I don't know why Rolex never followed up on this piece. Here's a quick wrist shot on what this watch looks like on the wrist. Again, you can see beautiful fit. I think it looks amazing. The next watch in this lineup is another Tudor Advisor, but this Tudor Advisor is actually from the 1970s. It was introduced in 1968, and this was a follow-up to the previous Tudor Advisor, the one that I showed you. This is reference 10050. It basically had an updated movement, so it's still the Adolphe Schilt movement, but this time it was reference 3475. This was in production until 1977. It's reminiscent of a more 70s kind of look. You can see that the Tudor Rose logo has been replaced by the Shield logo at this point. It says Tudor Advisor, shock resisting, and very interesting thing, the case is actually resembling a little bit like the Vulcan Cricket or the JLC Memovox. This is the only time in Tudor's history where Tudor actually did not use an oyster case. They actually adopted a case from a different style, and that alone makes this watch pretty unique. So it's very rare when a company wanders off their traditional style of watchmaking DNA design characteristic, and this was one of those examples. In the black dial version, this is quite rare to find. You can see the case is actually in fantastic condition. I think it's pretty unpolished. It even has the sticker on the case back. It hasn't been removed. Once again, an eBay find in excellent condition, and this to me signifies a slight departure in either Tudor or Rolex has actually never used this case in any other watch except this. And once again, Rolex never followed up on a watch that uses this particular alarm function. So I always think that these vintage Tudor watches in particular are very unique. I am a self-proclaimed Tudor fanboy, so to me these watches are extremely interesting and very, very collectible. But there could have been many reasons why Rolex never followed up with a watch of their own. By the time Tudor got into the game and Rolex would have considered entering the game, maybe the charm for alarm watches had decreased. Quartz watches were starting to come in to play in the late 60s. So some of those newer shift in technologies may have probably killed Rolex's plans of entering into this market. But again, this is a very unique piece of history. I just call this the Rolex that never meant to be. And to me, these Tudor watches signify tremendous value from a collector's standpoint. I don't think everything that I collect is from a monetary standpoint. That's really not the purpose of collecting. And if that's the intent in which you're collecting, then you should probably not call yourself a collector. You should call yourself an investor. To me, I really love the charm of these vintage watches. I do wear them quite regularly, and I really love the look and feel that they have on the wrist. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this. If you do like this video, subscribe to the channel and get notified on future videos. Your support is very much welcome. And let me know in the comments, what do you think of these vintage watches? Is there anything that has held you back from going into vintage watches? Or is this something that you would consider? Let me know in the comments below. That's really all I had to share for today. Thank you all for watching and have a great day. Take care.